Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Punkaby here for MMOBomb.com, and welcome back to the Free to Play Podcast, episode 78. This is July 28th, 2013, and we've got yet another excellent episode of news for you today. We're going a little bit nostalgic this week. We've got some old franchises coming back and some new studios being born. We'll talk about what all that means, and I actually kind of think it's exciting. We've got the potential for a lot of new sort of groundbreaking, quote-unquote, or at least nostalgic franchises to see a return of them. So yeah, why don't we go ahead and introduce our lovely co-host. They are like my, I guess you could say co-host whenever you do like magic tricks. You're the people that get in the boxes and that hang from the ceiling and get knives thrown at them. We've got Kevin and Jason. Kevin, let's start with you. What magic trick would you like to be in the most?
Well, I'm just excited I get to go first, but I want to be the one that gets sawed in half. Always wanted to be that one.
You want to be the one that's sawed in half. Oh, gastrointestinal problems, I think, after that one. And then, Jason, what magic trick would you like to be involved in as a lovely assistant?
I was about to say, the magic trick I would like to be involved in is to make your lovely assistant disappear with me.
Oh, man. He's going to snatch him up. See, that's why I couldn't
No, snatch her up. Let's be...
Okay, let's be specific. Okay, yeah. Yes, it is one of those gender-specific questions. We have to be specific to that. All right, well, looks like I won't have you in my magic show, but glad to actually have you guys here this week. Glad you showed up. The show must go on, and we've got some news to start off with. So why don't we get right into that? Now, the first thing that we're going to talk about is actually something we're building on based on last week's episode, if you caught that. And that's End of Nations having a little bit of a mix-up, getting a little bit of change, coming in as a MOBA now, not as an RTS. And there's like a big hoop-blop-bop or whatever you want to call it about that. Community members crying that, oh no, not another MOBA. But apparently it's closer to the original than we thought. We can put our pitchforks away and our burning torches. I know everybody loves a good like witch hunt, you know? Everybody loves to get the whole mentality of the gaming community just riled up and going for something. But according to Scott Lane, who is the executive producer on End of Nations, he talked to RTS Guru recently, and he says that the game actually hasn't changed as much as people have feared. There's some minor changes, a little bit more focus on hero units, which of course is sort of what the whole MOBA aspect comes into play. Essentially now you're going to be able to use up to 4 abilities or passives, just like a MOBA, on a particular hero unit. But apparently there's still a micromanagement aspect to it. You still have minions / RTS units that you command. And the way he kind of described it to me sounded a bit like maybe Dawn of War, the RTS, or Warcraft 3, whereby you had sort of like your hero unit, but you still had other units that sort of backed that main unit up, and it wasn't always all about your hero unit, but the hero unit definitely played a major role in, swinging the tide of battle. What do you guys think about these changes, now that you kind of get a little bit more idea of what direction they're headed? Jason, why don't we start with you?
I think it was just... I think when they said MOBA, we thought something. We thought lanes, and we think minions, and we think, heroes and whatever. And if it's really like this, if it's really just an RTS with champions, sort of, and as they seem to indicate in the interview, the kind of advancement, like in-game advancement, like leveling up like you do in League of Legends or whatever, if it's like that, but it's still the same base RTS kind of gameplay, I don't know if you really call it a MOBA then. I agree, it's more like RTS, more like you said, Warcraft. I think Star Wars Battlefront was kind of the same way. You had hero units, that sort of thing, which was more RTS-like. So I don't know what they're calling it now.
I actually think, and let me know if you agree with this. I actually think it was a disservice to the game by calling it a MOBA. I think they were thinking like, oh yeah, everybody identifies with MOBA. We have hero units. That's like MOBA. We'll just call it a MOBA. It's still an RTS, but it's got MOBA elements, and that's something that Scott Lane sort of brought up. He's like, it's still an RTS, don't worry, but we're calling it like a hybrid MOBA RTS, and I think he's starting to realize even just associating itself at all with a MOBA mentality isn't That's not what the cool kids are doing nowadays. MOBA, haven't they heard MOBA So 2012? I mean, come on.
And that's not what it says on their site either. It says it's a tactical MOBA. Well, tactical MOBA. Who knows what that means exactly? But
yeah,
you don't want to call it a MOBA. Don't call it a MOBA in like the 5th word on your website.
Yeah, I don't know. What about you, Kevin? You play a lot of MOBAs. What do you, when you hear about like what they are planning to do with it, does it make you more likely to play it now that you know it's less like a normal traditional MOBA, or is it still just the idea of having a hero controlled unit that you upgrade over time and they get stronger and you have abilities? Does that still just not entice you?
Well, I'm tired of playing the same old type of MOBAs over and over and over again, so something new would interest me. Hopefully it's like closer to like the Warcraft 3 side of it too. It's as far away from a traditional MOBA as possible, while still technically a MOBA, would bring me into the game much more than like this is straight up a MOBA using like End of Nations like heroes and stuff. So yeah, it's gonna make me more likely to play it. That's not saying a whole lot. If it happens to be too MOBA-ish, I'm probably just gonna be done with it.
Yeah, I mean that's the point you make though, is that they're calling it a MOBA, yet I think it's going to appeal more to RTS fans.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing I actually didn't mention is in the article, there is a system whereby players are going to be able to go around the map and actually pick up items like, encounter chests or what have you, which will have modifications which allow them to gain additional strength and abilities and what have you. Just like in Warcraft 3, where you would go around the map and find items usually behind camps of minions, and you kill and get those items, and you would put them on your hero. I don't know if there will be the whole like you have to kill a particular group of minions to get to the item, but they did mention that you'll be able to explore the map and find these, which again sort of you don't really explore a MOBA map like a tri-lane map. You don't explore it to go and kill or find a particular treasure. You know where everything is, right? And the way they talked about this is they talked about it as if it would be randomized, like what items would be where players could go and to actually find these items, which definitely sort of gets me thinking a lot more towards Warcraft 3, that type of RTS mentality still continuously. However, I feel like, and this is something that should be mentioned, they're removing one of the biggest elements that drew people to the End of Nations in the beginning, which was they were planning on having 50 versus 50 battles, which, I mean, no RTS really has that size, of battles in terms of amount of players. Of course, they have a lot of minions and a lot of units at their control, but 50 versus 50 in terms of battle scope is huge. And now they're only going to be like 3v3 or 5v5. For an RTS, that's still a lot fighting against each other at once. I mean, I think StarCraft goes up to 5v5, maybe a little bit more, but that's not traditional. I mean, they're kind of like making 3v3 and 5v5 as a mainstay. And I'm just curious if you guys think that will turn off a lot of players, or if that was like really matters a lot in the long run.
I always wondered how they were going to implement that. When we first heard they're going to be 50 versus 50 battles, and everyone's going to have 20 units or whatever. It's like how does that work? And I never got into it far enough in the alpha to like do a battle of that size to see how absolute what a mess it was.
I don't recall there actually being battles of that size, if I remember from playing in the alpha or beta. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I do remember large battles. I remember at least like 24 or something like that.
I think that was what the max was before, 24 versus 24.
Yeah. But I don't recall them ever ratcheting it up to the 50s like they had said originally.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if they just realized, and probably rightly so, that's just, it's always cool when you hear about like an MMO where it's like you have 100 people fighting each other in a battle and over something, and you realize it's just a big cluster.
Yeah, actually, we're going to get to that whenever I talk to whenever we talk about MMOBombs. I have something specifically that talks about that. But yeah, I do definitely agree. I don't think it's really feasible, however cool it sounds. But I certainly don't think they had to, cram it down or compact it down to just 5v5. I thought they could have, met somewhere in between. But granted, that again, draws into question how much of this is actually a MOBA, because if you're scaling back from 50 versus 50, where an individual group of units isn't, in the long, in the big picture, it's part of the army, but it isn't like the army. It isn't like the linchpin, if you will. when you go down to 3v3 or 5v5, suddenly every unit, and every hero unit in this case, becomes a much more major player. So it definitely seems like they're at least in the team sizes, definitely going the way of a traditional MOBA, which may mean that the maps themselves are going to be much smaller, obviously. Kevin, would you play a MOBA that was like 20 on 20 or something like that?
Yeah, I think I would.
You would? It would be a lot of abilities at once.
Yeah, it could make for some very epic and very just like, bam, you're dead moments, but I feel like it would be very, well, a little more on the interactive stuff, because sometimes you just run around doing nothing, just farming for like, half the match, and I feel like that big, depending on how big the map is, you could just be constantly running the people left and right. And
I actually think it would be kind of cool if there was a MOBA that had like 20 on 20, but the map was very large so that you didn't ever have like huge engagements of 20 actually on 20. You would have skirmishes of maybe 10 on 10, but it was like a multi-stage victory, win scenario where every sort of group of players had to contribute somewhat to their overall team winning. Whether it be assaulting one area or securing another objective. I think that would actually be pretty cool if they expanded MOBA to that size and made it like overall team objectives, not just like a small team objective of taking towers or killing an inhibitor or something like that.
Instead of 3 lanes, you have like 12.
Yeah, or just make it more like a battlefield in general. Like it actually just looks like an open battlefield that you can race across with your hero unit and maybe a couple other, like AI units that race across with you. And it's that kind of battle. It's not where it's like structured into specific lanes, but you still have that, momentum crash in the middle where everybody meets. Food for thought. But why don't we go ahead and move on to some other new exciting news. There is a brand new free-to-play MMO studio on the horizon based in America that is comprised of some surprising faces. People from Blizzard, Sony Online, Relic Entertainment, all these executives from each of these companies, their former executives from the companies rather, have created a brand new studio called Molten Games, which I'm actually kind of curious. Is that like a user on our forums brought this up? Is that sort of like a play on a Blizzard, like Molten? It's like the exact opposite. Blizzard, Molten, Blizzard Games, Molten Games. Food for thought. It's something to think about. But yeah, Molten Games. It's funded by NCSoft, which I know a lot of people may be like, "Oh my God, NCSoft." I think that's sort of like a mentality everybody has today about every major free-to-play, publisher. Perfect World Entertainment, Area Games, NCSoft. Everybody's like, publishers. But they're funding them, multi-million. And what makes it a little bit different than everything else, though, is that they're aiming to be a AAA free-to-play MMO studio that has like a hands-off approach between the publisher and developer relationship. So while NCSoft is shoveling money down their throats, they're kind of being like, you go ahead and decide how you want to chew it and digest that, They're not really saying, this is how you have to do it all. And they continuously, shoving down their own regimen down their throats, I guess you could say.
How exactly did they say that?
This is how you have to do it? I don't know. Does it sound like Yoda or something like that? Like
a little bit, except for, like, not.
Okay, well, yeah. So this actually has me super pumped. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really excited to see what they could bring. Not because I'm like a huge Blizzard fan or SOE fan. I am a pretty big Relic fan, though. I will admit, Relic. I have a soft spot for Relic RTSs, but I think that if these guys have that experience and they've been with companies that have been less successful and they really truly want to make a game, one of the quotes that were in the press release was that they we created Molten Games in order to truly have control over our game development and IP, and we're going to create something epic. That was said by Zhang Han, CEO of Molten Games. If I butchered your name, I'm truly sorry. I don't know how to pronounce 4 names at times. Come on. And it says, our team understands not only the creation of online games, but the ongoing management of them better than anyone else in the industry. As we continue to build our team and work on our initial product, gameplay and player experience is going to come first with every decision. So that certainly is a step in the right direction, I could say. You know, there's still nothing to show for it. It's still just chest beating at this point.
Exactly, and that's the point at which I become less interested.
Yeah.
It's like I want to know something. I want to know more than the names of executives.
Would you have preferred they actually like announced this at the time that they announced like their first title, where they showed something?
Not necessarily you don't have to show something. I mean, this could be 4 or 5 years out, but at least if they would have given me the name of like a designer or a developer who had done this, at least, or some creative person at least, more than just I don't know what it was, but it's like the organized play. It's like the organized play guy. I don't remember what the other two do, but yeah, it's like give me at least some sort of creative thing. At least like for instance when I look at 38 Studios as an example. At least it showed me R.A. Salvatore and Todd McFarlane. Those are guys who you're like, oh sure, I love the stuff they do.
On Game Informer has some of the details in terms of who actually is a part of the team. When they put that umbrella and sort of just list Blizzard, Relic, and SOE, they don't really tell who, like you mentioned, but it seems that Paul De La Bida, former global head of esports and community at Blizzard, Han was the former head of Blizzard Korean office, and Blaine Smith, who has a history in the Company of Heroes and God of War franchises. They came together to create Molten Games. That's who Game Informer has listed as some of the executives.
Yeah, I would just rather hear about developers, about the creative people actually making it.
Yeah, no, certainly, because the developers, if you say, this is who's heading up the project, he worked on this and this and this. I think if they mention like executive producer or lead director or lead creative director. Or of course, like the lead designer, any of those three sort of title positions, if they announced who were actually in those positions, I would have had a lot more sort of faith in terms of like what they are capable of creating, because I would have something to go by for their previous work. Because I don't, with these guys, just to go along with that, you can say, oh, okay, they had management roles, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have direct sort of like specific, I created this, or I produced this because I came up with this and this and this design functions of the game, what have you. They're basically just managing the team that is creating that stuff. I don't know, what about you, Kevin? What's your opinion?
For me it's kind of exciting, just the possibility of it, but until I see what they actually put out and see whether they're worth going, oh, they're so amazing, I'm just kind of like, whatever. Because, you can say you're going to do all these things, but until you deliver some product that's actually as good as you make it sound like you're going to do, you're just all words.
No, for sure, exactly. But, I mean, that being said, it's always great to hear new news about MMO companies that actually have decent backing behind them, right?
Yeah.
Because certainly, for sure they could crash and bomb, and this could be terrible. But on the other hand, it could actually be semi-decent. It could have its issues, but it still could be something it's worth our time. And I'm just happy to know that it's at least in the works. There's something coming that wasn't here, a week ago, or wasn't here a year ago. And it's just it's kind of like a nice, heartwarming feeling if you like free to play.
And as much as people are, like you said, everybody's mad at some big developer or publisher for something. A lot of people do hate on NCSoft, especially in large part due to City of Heroes. You have ArenaNet, and they've done Guild Wars 2. A lot of people like that. A lot of people are excited for WildStar, like Carbine. So, NCSoft does have some at least decent games out in the West that are doing pretty well and that people are generally happy with.
Yeah, exactly. I just think in the free-to-play area is where I think people are most dissatisfied with them.
Yeah, because, again, Guild Wars 2 isn't, and we don't know about WildStar yet, so...
Yeah, apparently, I know a lot of people wonder about this, and so I will give you as much information as I have right now. And, of course, MMOBomb is all about free-to-play games, and so we only focus on free-to-play games. So we're not going to start covering a game, even though it looks cool, don't get me wrong. we're not going to start covering a game until we know for sure whether or not it's going to be free to play, because we don't want to mislead you guys. So with WildStar, there's been a lot of gun jumping. People have been jumping the gun a lot and saying it is going to be free to play or it isn't going to be free to play. And the up-to-date knowledge that we have right now is that it is going to be a hybrid model, which most likely means it'll be a buy-to-play scenario. But they are still not giving any more specifics. They still have not confirmed that it won't be free to play. So there may be a hybrid thing where part of it's free to play, but not the full game's free to play, or maybe a buy to play, much similar to Guild Wars 2. So those are the things that we know at this moment, and you can be sure that as soon as we know more, we will let you guys know. So that's just a little quick update on WildStar there, just because I don't think we've ever had like an official stance on that game for MMOBomb. That being said, it looks cool. What'd you say, Jason?
I'll say that's more than what I knew.
Yeah, I mean, I've been actually tracking it. Like, I'm curious to know what it's going to be like, just because I've been looking for an MMO that gives me that feeling that WoW gave me so many years ago. I can't help it. All right. So we've got another series making a return here. This time in the form of a creepy little girl who likes to make people explode into bloody giblets. Yeah, that's F.E.A.R. F.E.A.R is making a return. F.E.A.R Online, as it's going to be called. It's going to be a new free-to-play shooter published by, drumroll, Area Games.
And you threw up a little bit in your mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just depressing.
I don't actually think they watch this because they've sent me nice things. They've sent me, like, shirts and hats or whatever. But I've said so many not so nice things about them on this podcast. So, Well,
they may listen to it because I've never said a good thing about them, and I've never gotten anything.
Well, I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to kiss up, They could always do that. They always try for, keep trying Area Games. Maybe one day you'll actually figure out you need to work on game service and that kind of stuff a little bit more.
But they must be doing something right because they keep making new stuff.
They know how to wheel and deal, Jason. I gotta give it to them. They know how to wheel and deal. They can get the games. They can get the name titles like Soldier Front 2. Everybody recognizes Soldier Front. We have Scarlet Blade. It's a boob game. We got it. F.E.A.R Online. Everybody's gonna recognize F.E.A.R. Come on. Whether or not it's going to be the F.E.A.R that we remember is something different. But did you know, Jason, that there actually was another free-to-play F.E.A.R game that came out way before this?
I did not know that, at least until before I read your article.
Oh, yeah. F.E.A.R Combat, I think in 2006 was when it was done. And that's just to give you an idea of how old F.E.A.R actually is. This was done in like 2006 after F.E.A.R had already been out. They took the multiplayer component of F.E.A.R and they made a completely free-to-play game, which played alongside the paid-for version of F.E.A.R. So basically, everybody who had paid for it could play on the same servers as everybody that was free-to-play. There was no cash shop, and the game still runs today. You can still download F.E.A.R Combat and play with other people, and there's still an active community. I gave a link on the forums, but you can't just download and play F.E.A.R Combat right now on its own, because apparently the master server list got nuked a while back. So the community for that game stepped up and actually recreated a list of servers. So if you go to that website, it'll be like guides to tell you how to get that all set up, and you can actually play that game still. I'd highly recommend doing it. It's really fun. I mean, Kevin or Jason, did you guys play the original F.E.A.R?
Yeah, I played them all.
They were awesome. Well, okay, the first one was awesome. Second and third one, I don't know. It's like it kept going through I call it like the sequel grinder, where every time it comes out with just a little bit more disformed paste. Where you kind of I still can kind of recognize it's F.E.A.R, but it's less F.E.A.R than it was before it went in. That's the kind of mentality I had with the sequels.
I think that's a pretty dead-on description of them. I mean, the first one really did something new. I mean, it had that creepy element, it had that the slowing down, a decent AI, or at least one that seemed decent at the time. Some good stuff, and they didn't really do much, anything new or creative with the other ones. They kind of just like, hey, this worked, let's do this, but to a lesser degree. It wasn't quite as good in any aspect of it.
Yeah, it was one of those... you don't realize how good the original one was until the sequels come out kind of thing. We were like, yeah, F.E.A.R is good, but then you're like, oh man, F.E.A.R was actually really good in comparison to how the series progressed. But this F.E.A.R Online isn't actually being developed by anyone in the West like all the other ones have. This one's being developed by a Korean company called In-Play Interactive, which really makes me wonder whether or not they're using any of the same engine code that was used in any of the other F.E.A.Rs.
Makes me wonder if it's going to be a complete grind fest.
Well, there is, of course, the multiplayer aspects of the game, but there was also going to be some PvE scenarios where 4 people in a F.E.A.R team scenario will go and try to, like, I guess, progress through different missions that are supposedly in the same timeline as F.E.A.R 2. So it's still like a progression of like, it's still within the same universe. Like Alma, the demented little demonic girl that can make blood drip from the walls and what have you, she's still around and you're still involved in her story. But I'm curious to know how much of that is like PR, or how much you actually can, you know, how much of a single player experience, or not a single player, a story experience, because this game isn't single player by any means. How much of a story experience are you going to get out of F.E.A.R? Because, go ahead, who was ever...
I was just going to say that it almost sounds like the evil version of Hello Kitty.
The evil version?
No, like she's in the game. You're kind of following. You're gonna kind of beat up with her, but she's eviler.
Eviler version of Hello Kitty. She's still in a red dress.
Okay. Does she have a little flower in her hair?
Maybe, I don't know. I haven't. I usually whenever I see her, I just turn around and run. Like F.E.A.R was one of those games that like really terrified me. Like I'm the kind of guy that can't really play scary games too much. So F.E.A.R, I played the demo and it convinced me not to buy the game. Like I didn't end up playing it until years later because I just at the time I was like I can't play this game. It scares me too much. Just can't do it. Like I get sucked into the atmosphere.
That's happened with me with different ones. There was a certain game that I'll just say I could not play the second Dead Space with the lights off. Freaked me out too much.
Dead Space is a little easier for me because it's third person, so like I feel a little bit more detached from the character. But anytime it's first person, like I haven't finished Amnesia, Dark Descent at all. Like not going to do it.
I played that lights off for a while. Yeah,
it's too scary. It's too scary. I don't know. When it comes to F.E.A.R Online, like I just seem like it's done and gone. Like maybe a new F.E.A.R Online would have been good like a couple years ago, but how many people are going to be like, oh, it's F.E.A.R? You know, remember F.E.A.R? F.E.A.R was so good.
I like to think, and I like the idea of a horror MMO type game.
Oh, yeah.
Their game, right? That sounds great. Now, I hope you can make it so that it wouldn't be, you know, MMOs or multiplayer online games, they're just repetitive. You do the same levels over and over or whatever. You'd have to not do that. So, oh, the zombie's going to jump out here or whatever. So if they could do something like that, if they can make it something that you're always going to be on your toes, you're never going to know exactly what's coming, that could be awesome. Regardless of whether it's F.E.A.R or not. I never played F.E.A.R, but I like this idea.
I really think in order for them to truly capture the F.E.A.R atmosphere, it has to have moderately decent AI, which, I mean, I really don't know how that's going to happen, but moderately decent AI. It has to have guns that nail people to the wall, because that's a F.E.A.R trait. It's like a really big, like a railgun, essentially, just bam. Nailing people to the wall is like the favorite pastime that I like to do in F.E.A.R. Just get them at different angles. And it has to have a bunch of windows that can be destroyed. Glass. It's got to have a lot of glass, and it has to have the ability for you to jump through the glass and roll. It has to feel like F.E.A.R. Like I guess that's one of the main things that I'm sort of worried about. If it's not the same engine, if it's not like a similar engine to the original F.E.A.R, will it feel like F.E.A.R when it comes to how you maneuver, how you use your weapons and abilities? Because you can kick people in F.E.A.R combat. You know, you can jump around and like I think do like a running kick. There's a lot of cool little moves you can do. You can jump through windows and what have you. So I'm just wondering if they're gonna try to capture that, or if it's gonna feel like a normal shooter with like a F.E.A.R skin over it, if you will.
Yeah, that would suck.
That would suck. I would feel like I was just playing like a generic horror shooter with the F.E.A.R Online name on it, essentially. I don't know. Let us know in the comments. What do you think? You gonna play it just because it has F.E.A.R in the name? Just to try it? Are you guys fans of the F.E.A.R franchise? Which was your favorite? Let us know. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of a nose congestion, it seems like. Alright, so moving on, we have Wargaming back in the news. Man, Wargaming they just bask in the sunlight, in the spotlight all the time. They always have something that they're coming out with, or talking about, or adding, or buying up, or changing, or what have you. This time they're getting the rights to Total Annihilation, the franchise. Now, Jason, Total Annihilation, it's pretty old. Have you played it?
I think we went over this last week. I think I said that I haven't played it, and you did a lot.
Total Annihilation? Did we talk about that last week?
Not the whole thing, I don't believe.
I think we talked about RTS. Total Annihilation didn't get bought up until this last week.
Right.
Yeah, it was a part of Atari. It was actually a franchise Atari owns, which I didn't actually know that. That was news to me. Wargaming bought the rights off of it. And for those that don't know, Wargaming actually has the original lead designer, Chris Taylor, who was a part of Gas Powered Games, which Wargaming also bought, the actual company, a while back. So this may mark a return of Total Annihilation. And for those of you who aren't old school RTS fans, like I'm a pretty old school RTS fan when it comes to like Age of Empires 2 and that kind of stuff. But Total Annihilation spawned a lot of really other iconic RTSs, including Supreme Commander, Supreme Commander 2, and then also the Total Annihilation, I believe, is what it's called right now. No, that's the franchise. Total Planetary Annihilation. There we go. I guess that would be more of like the true homage sequel, because that one involves a lot of the mechanics, I guess, from the original Total Annihilation, but on a planetary scale. So yeah, it inspired a lot of things. It's certainly a series that old school RTS fans really enjoy, and I'm wondering if Wargaming is going to actually reboot it. Well, I would think they're going to reboot it. They bought it after all.
It'd be a shame for them not to.
It's a good series. We're gonna have to maybe put some footage, like gameplay footage of it over this. It's like, I don't know, I think about it just as fondly as I do StarCraft in terms of like old school RTS. Well, really, Age of Empires, that's like my #1 old school RTS, but these they're all just lumped in there as like a bucket of like fond memories.
From when you were, what, like 10?
Yes, I was really into RTSs when I was 10. No joke. Like I'm not even serious. Like not even kidding. Rather, I was super into RTSs. That was like my favorite sort of series or genre, and I played them all. And I did play Total Annihilation. It was quite good.
I was into my Atari 2600 when I was 10. But
really?
Anyway, yes, really. But yeah, I mean, if they do this, it's an interesting direction for Wargaming to go. Obviously, they're looking to do something else, buying gas powered and getting rights to this and whatever. That they're obviously looking to branch out from just their war games. I hope that they don't overextend themselves. That's a little like what I feel Trion kind of did, because Trion and Wargaming too, kind of came on the scene about the same time. You have, they came out with Rift, and that was, okay, it did pretty well. And about the same time, they announced End of Nations. That's been through like 3 iterations now. They put out Defiance, which came out, didn't do that great. It's now on sale for like $10. They laid off a bunch of people. They had this other game they were showing off at PAX last year, Warface, a shooter from I don't remember what, some Russian company. So it just seems almost like they're almost doing a little too much and maybe not focusing as much as they should on their core products, and hope the Wargaming doesn't feel that same way. They don't get don't get overconfident with how well they've done with World of Tanks, and overdo it.
I didn't think about that. Now to mention it, now that you bring it up with Trying Worlds, it's kind of like a very similar situation, like you mentioned. I'm a little bit more inclined to say Wargaming has the financial backing to do it a little bit better, because it seems as though, at least with World of Tanks seemed more successful than Rift.
Than Rift, yeah.
Yeah, in terms of financially speaking, how much it brings in, which would certainly give Wargaming more capital to do stuff with. But Wargaming really only has one major title that brings in money for it. Whereas, although Triumph Worlds has multiple, only a couple of them are also making money. But like you mentioned, they have a lot more sucking money out of them.
They have a lot more sucking, that's for sure. No.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a way to put it. But although, on that note, I will say I was playing World of Warplanes last Wednesday for Bomb Live, which you can watch it. It's on YouTube. We actually got that back going thanks to some Twitch issues being finally resolved. And there wasn't as many players by far in World of Warplanes as there was in War Thunder, which I feel like this may end up being a somewhat flop for Wargaming. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think people will still play it because it's a Wargaming title, and those that really are involved with Wargaming, like in World of Tanks, who enjoy fighter planes and what have you, will definitely probably play this. So I don't think it will shut down or anything like that, but it certainly doesn't have the same amount of players consistently playing it. And I'm curious to know what will happen once War Thunder implements the tank side of things, because they've teased that they're going to implement tanks. And if it ends up being in the same realm and world as the actual planes, then we'll see how that fares. Now, if that ends up happening and World of Warplanes has issues, then you're right. You start to wonder, well, is Wargaming stretching themselves out? Because what if Wargaming suddenly unveils, oh, we're building, we're branching out into RTSs and shooters, or just picking stuff at random. And, once you start having your eggs in multiple baskets, that's great. But if those eggs start going sour and going rotten, then you got rotten eggs, and you gotta shed things. But I don't know. I'm really excited. I hope that they do end up producing different franchise-based titles, stuff that we haven't really seen in free-to-play. Because, if anything, I feel that most free-to-play developers, except for some of the big ones like SOE and Perfect World, etc., they're kind of doing everything very safe. A MOBA, a generic FPS, that kind of stuff. Not too many innovative RTSs, nothing really like iconic, I guess you could say, other than maybe Valve and Dota 2. So if Wargaming actually brought in a huge, competitive RTS, I think that's maybe that's what we'll see in 2014, Jason. I'm gonna call it right now. What is it? 7/28. I'm gonna call it right now. 2012 was the year of MOBAs. 2012 was the year of shooters. 2013 was the year of MOBAs. I'm going to call it now. 2014 is the year of RTSs.
All right. We'll go with it.
We're going to have...
Can't forget my boys, Total War Arena Battles, or whatever it's called. I don't remember what it's called. But that's another one that's coming out sometime soon. So
really? Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's right. Also free to play, yep.
They call it a MOBA, but it also looks like an RTS.
No, I think it's an RTS.
Yeah. It's an RTS MOBA. It's one of those... They're pulling it End of Nations.
When did they say MOBA? I don't remember seeing that.
They said MOBA.
Now I'm disinterested.
I gotta bring it up. Like Total War. Like, I'm 90% sure they called it a MOBA at some point, but I don't know. I'll have to check on that as we keep going. But all right, so that's gonna go ahead and wrap up our news topics for this week. A lot of new things to talk about, think about. Let us know your opinions on. Tell me, out of all the news, the End of Nations not being a MOBA, a new free-to-play MMO studio, F.E.A.R coming back, and Wargaming gaining the rights to Total Annihilation, which one are you most stoked for? Let me know in the comments below. This isn't the question of the week. It's just something I'm curious about. So be sure to let me know. Well, why don't we go ahead then, Kevin, and let you take the weekly bomb then first.
I have a weekly dub bomb actually for a couple of the guys that come into the shop where I work. This last week we had a couple of free tournaments for this, that, and the other thing, but we had a family come in, and I didn't see them come in, but basically sold every game I've ever even heard of to this family, and I was like, wow. So it just really shows kind of like customers and guys that are regulars in your shop how awesome they can be, and I just really appreciate them just wanting to share their knowledge with everyone. That was really cool. Made me look good.
Awesome. Glad that you have a feel-good experience. Now, Jason, what's your weekly bomb?
First of all, I actually am looking at the Total War Arena wiki, and it says it mixes elements of RTS and MOBA gameplay. So there you go.
Yeah, I was going to mention it when it was my turn. I had it right up here as well.
Okay, yeah, as well.
They put it in there. It's RTS and MOBA.
Right there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, my A-bomb is for that crazy black gold online loot system.
Oh man.
What is that?
So go ahead and give a tiny bit of backstory
All right,
on your article. If people
I
haven't read the article,
did the article earlier this week.
Read it. It's on MMOBomb.com. Read it.
Yep.
Black gold.
And apparently the way it works is, I don't even, the TLDR version is you'll get loot, but you might have to pay to get it. That's basically what it is. It'll show up, and I guess, what is it? It will lock your loot, and you can occasionally purchase it.
Occasionally.
Win a lottery ticket to get it. I can't even figure it out. This whole thing with the black gold time and everything else, and that part enough makes my head hurt. But just the notion that I'm going to get loot and then you're going to tell me I have to pay for it is like, it's like lockboxes on crack.
Lockboxes on crack. All right, guys, that's going to be the title of this video. I got to type it now before I forget. Lockboxes on crack. All right, black gold. Lockboxes on crack.
On crack.
Tweet that out right now.
I can't see anybody liking this. And I looked at the first comment. The first word in the first comment is what?
What?
With all the caps and two question marks.
I highly would suggest everybody check out this article if they're interested in knowing how this works. Of course, Snail Games, who is going to be publishing Black Gold in the North American audience area. This is for the Chinese version, correct? Not necessarily going to be something that's also going to happen with the Snail Games version, but certainly it wouldn't be good, to say in the least bit. It would not be something that I think people over in the West would particularly enjoy. You know what kind of reminds me of? Let me ask you, Jason. What would you rather? Would you rather be shown loot that's locked and you're not able to get it? Or would you rather, say, go the Star Wars The Old Republic and not just be able to gain that kind of loot at all? Which one's like the lesser of the two evils?
Probably the second one, because you're not tempted to get it.
That's true. This is like ingenious.
Well, that's what it is. I mean, that's how the really crappy free-to-play like mobile games get you. I think that's what Candy Crush Saga does exactly, almost. Like
it gives you an awesome piece of gear, and it's like, nope, you can't use it.
Yeah, or something like that. You know, you can, but you have to pay $1.
Oh God.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, this is even better than the lockboxes, because it's like, hey, yeah, you're gonna get this awesome pair of boots or whatever.
Well, yeah, it's not random. You don't. Lockboxes is, hey, you got this box of loot. Who knows what's in it? You'll have to pay to find out. So it is kind of the same, but less random. So hey,
no, I know.
It's better.
It's financially better for them, because it's already like, hey, you got an awesome thing, pay for it, get it. I think people are way more likely to pay for things if they know it's going to be good. All right, so my weekly bomb then is going to be for EVE Online. It's a pseudo hybrid A-bomb dub bomb. First of all, it's a dub bomb for EVE Online because I was just earlier today in a 4-hour-long 4,000-man battle in EVE. It was the largest battle ever to take place in EVE. EVE's been going on for 10 years. I've only been playing for about 6-7 months or so. It's been the largest battle in EVE thus far. And it literally was up to capacity. There was no more people that could join in the fight after, like, I think 4,200. We lost. We got our faces crushed in. But it was a good fight, and I certainly really enjoyed the experience. It was something I'd never experienced in any other MMO. I've never experienced a total, basically 2,200 people from 2 different opposing faction sides organizing. This was all orchestrated and fighting in unison against each other at the same time. It was a sight to behold, and I would recommend you guys looking it up. I'm sure there'll be a lot of write-ups and images from it because it was pretty impressive to check out. The A-bomb portion of that is the fact that it was super laggy, as you can imagine. I think it took, because they have this system in place whereby instead of everything just lagging out, everything takes way longer. So something that would normally take 1 second will take a minute. So it got to the point where for me to do any action took about 10 minutes. Because it would take like 10 seconds in game, so it equated to 10 minutes real life time. That's why the fight went on for 4 hours. The fight would have probably been over in about 30 minutes. But because of the whole time thing, it became a multi-hour deal. if that was ever fixed, I think that would be the greatest thing ever to have in online battles. This huge, non-laggy galactic warfare between giant battleships. Overall, good fight. Was fun. Definitely more a bomb than an A-bomb, but I had to include that in there. All right.
That's a lot what we were talking about earlier when we were talking about the huge battles in End of Nations. It's like, neat, but can you actually make it happen and make my computer not explode when it happens?
Yeah, that's the thing. It wasn't even just the fact that the computers would explode. Like, don't get me wrong, I had lower frame rate per second, but it was just because the server tech can't handle 4,000 people doing stuff at one time in real time. So the server literally has to slow itself down in order to handle all the inputs. And we're just not there in terms of server technology. At least in CCP, which is the company that develops EVE Online, they have some of the most leading forward, MMO server technology. They actually can take server nodes and reinforce certain areas in the game so that you have a more lagless experience when you're having large fights. And even with their super node attached to it, which is a really powerful supercomputer, it still was lagging super hardcore. So yeah, that node, just to give you some idea of what it's capable of, with 2,200 people in the area for the fight, it wasn't lagging with 2,200 people. But when it got up to 4,000 people, it couldn't handle it anymore. And that's 2,200 people you could see on screen at once. They were all there. It was you have to watch videos of it, guys.
I'm actually reading a little bit. So it said there were 2,900 ships destroyed.
Yes, there was at least a couple thousand ships destroyed.
Was yours?
No, my ship was not destroyed. I ended up self-destructing my ship because it was a long way home, and I didn't want to fly back at 10% slow-mo version, because that would have taken literally hours to fly home. So I just blew myself up. It was a cheap ship. I could do that. If I was in a bigger ship, I wouldn't have done so. But I was in a cheap thing that I could afford to replace. EVE Online. Pretty cool game if you can get past how technical it is. Alright, so, member bombs. How have you guys been? Why don't we go ahead and start with Neo Phantome. I feel like it's Neo Phantom, but he put with an M instead of M-E rather, instead of just like an M. So Neo Phantome. So Neo Phantome says, I want to give an A-bomb to free-to-play games for Androids. May it be social or single-player. Being exclusively pay-to-win or simple trials. Real free-to-play model still has to make its way or make its mark on the mobile market. And I would have to agree with that. 90% of the games, it seems, that are free-to-play on mobile devices are not really completely free-to-play. They're kind of stuck in like 2004 free-to-play, I'd have to say. It's kind of the reason why we don't really review them on MMOBomb. Because the model, generally speaking, the gameplay is very shallow for what you can do before you pay. I don't know. If you guys have a favorite mobile game, let us know in the description. Or the comments, rather, not the description. Jason, why don't you go ahead and take the next one?
All right, this is one that's... Oh, God, I got an easy-to-pronounce name this week.
Yeah, you got a super easy, man.
This is from Clay Ross. Thank you, Clay, for your great name. He wants to give a da-bomb for Rift for giving out credits for Summerfest. I haven't checked into Rift for a while, but I knew that Summerfest is going on, and there's like characters in bikinis, so I might have to check.
It's giving out free credits. I wonder what you have to do to get free credits in the Summerfest.
That probably involves the bikini.
Wear a bikini.
Your groove thing.
Are they credit necklaces? Do you throw them out to players? You're like,
oh yeah, I know where you're going. It's not
the Mardi.
Summerfest.
It's Summerfest, but I mean, come on. Everybody's partying from like college or out of college. I don't know. Haven't you ever heard the song "Surfing USA"? It's like a totally.
That's even older than I am.
That's true. That's an old song. All right, Kevin, what's the final one?
Air Splash yet again got a da-bomb for Steam. With the sales going on, it lets me enjoy the games that are normally out of my reach as a college student. He spelled it collage though.
Maybe he's an art.
Maybe he's a collage student.
Collage student.
You study collages? Anyway, because the low prices and the awesome games, my friends and I have been having loads of fun. It's just time-consuming fun. I've bought Dark Souls, stuck on the Four Kings boss, both Fallouts, and both Darksiders. I might have to live on ramen for a while, but it's worth it.
Sounds good, Air Splash. Just keep on plodding on, getting through college. It'll be worth it, maybe.
You'll probably finish college before you finish Dark Souls.
Yeah, I'm still playing Dark Souls. It's taught me a lot about my patience levels. But you know, Air Splash, I have to give a bomb to you, man. You're like Old Faithful. You have something for us every week, and I feel like I'm peering into the life of one of our fans, as he gives us a nice, inviting story to listen to. Keep on eating that ramen. Tell me what favorite ramen you like to eat, Air Splash. I'm curious to know. But that's sort of like a rite to passage, eating ramen.
That's the extra question. The extra question of the week is for Air Splash only. What kind of ramen do you eat?
Yes, Air Splash. Specifically about you. Maybe anybody else who wants an extra special question of the week, you got to get on Air Splash's level. You got to donate questions or responses to the weekly bombs and the weekly question of the weeks. Then you can get shout-outs like this. Poorly phrased shout-outs. Yeah. Alright, so the question of the week from last week was, are there any mobile features you would like to see in cross-platform games? Mega17 comes in and he says, I would love if there was a mobile iOS game that could let me earn IP on League of Legends, earn Steam credits, or acquire gems, gold, and Guild Wars 2. So basically, just like whatever, like a mini game that you can earn IP or whatever currency. You know, that's kind of cool when you think about it. If there was like a game where you just did whatever, you just hooked up your accounts to it, you know, it was totally legit, didn't steal your information. And if you just completed like simple tasks or simple things on your phone, you would earn, you know, credits that you could then spend to get IP or Steam, you know, money or cash or what have you.
Actually, King's Isle had something like that for Wizard 101. They had a little like block matching game.
Really?
Yeah, you could do it on your phone. I have it installed on mine, and you could get gold, in-game gold.
Well, there you go, Mega17. Now you just got to get other people to do it.
Yep.
So it is being used, just needs to be expanded upon. Now, Jason, why don't you take the next one? I gave you an easy name. Now I got to give you a hard name.
Zarek Dupa. Zarek Dupa. That's it. It's a nice Eastern European name, Zarek Dupa. He says, I would like to have an app for mobile devices that lets you watch Dota TV games on your phone.
Yep.
Dota.
So basically he wants to watch like esports games on his phone.
Sure. I can't believe there isn't some... I mean, you can still get Twitch for your phone.
Yeah, but it doesn't really... it's not really the same because it's Twitch, right? You just have Twitch functionality. It's not like built for Dota or anything like that.
You would think, I mean, Dota or League of Legends, someone like that would have a dedicated streaming app or something like that.
Oh, I'm gonna call it now. Who do you think is gonna have one first for the phone? You think Valve or Riot?
Riot
will have it.
Right.
Think Riot? Okay.
Their entire business is that. Valve has a lot of other stuff going on. Yeah. Like Half-Life 3 confirmed. No wait.
Don't do that to me. That's not nice.
Eventually. Yeah, Riot.
Don't you dare.
Riot's building a lot of infrastructure around streaming, so I would definitely agree that maybe there eventually will be a program that lets you watch it from your phone, which would be awesome because there's already like stuff like that for like NASCAR and football and basketball. Why not for esports?
Yeah,
if it was online,
now that League is a real sport, it'll probably happen. It'll be on ESPN Mobile.
Yeah, maybe you can watch it on your toilet. You just sit there and watch a League of Legends game. Well, I guess you could do that anyways. You just have a laptop instead. But if you want it more compact,
I never want to touch your laptop now.
Nah.
I feel ashamed that I feel like I need to go like shower right now.
No, you just don't touch my tablet. The laptop's too big for bathroom, Jason. Just when you come over, don't touch my tablet.
Okay.
That's TMI. All right, so question of the week for this week then is there an old franchise you would like to see come back free to play? So we talked about Total Annihilation, F.E.A.R Online, all these different franchises resurrecting, coming back from the dead. Is there one that you would like to see? It can be dead, it can be still, you know, played, but not quite brought into the free to play fold, whatever. Is there one that you would like to see come back as free to play? Let us know in the comments down below why and what game. And who knows, maybe we'll talk about your name and how hard it is to pronounce for like 5 minutes straight or something.
That's always the highlight of the show.
It's always the highlight of the show. Who can pronounce the name or who can butcher it the most? Alright guys, this is a part of the show where we hawk our dirty Twitter wares and what have you. Jason, as usual, I'll let you go ahead and start first. Kick it off.
Find me on the Twitter at Winter Informal, and I actually have not tweeted once today. It's very strange.
I haven't either. We better go do that right now.
No, I want to make it the whole day. I'm going to go the whole day now.
You're going to go the whole day? Oh.
Well, I've gained like 2 followers. So obviously, the less I tweet, the more followers I get. So
It's like, oh, he's so quiet. We don't have to get spam from him all the time.
yeah, exactly. I have unfollowed people for spamming too much. But anyway,
Kevin.
and also,
go ahead. Sorry.
I stream at twitch.tv/JasonWinter.
Well, there you go. Sorry about trying to cut you off there a little bit early, Jason. Twitch.tv, always a great place to find Jason. Jason, we're going to have to get you on the Bomb live stream this coming Wednesday. I demand it.
And I understand we might have a video coming out soon as well.
Yes. Hello Kitty. It's maybe tomorrow, guys.
Did it. We actually did it.
And by tomorrow, I mean Monday, so it's already out by the time you watch this. Ha. So, all right. I hope you enjoyed this stream, guys. Kevin?
No social media K, and I did post something, although it was probably, it happened while we were doing this, because that whole discussion of ramen made me want to swap ramen recipes. I tweeted that. So yeah, no social media K.
No social media K. I am tweeting like I said I would, live streaming while doing the podcast. I'm not live streaming, I'm tweeting. Tweeting while doing the podcast. Yeah. Alright. And then you can do that. You can find that tweet if you want to read it yourself at Spunkify on Twitter. And then you can watch me on MMOBomb, twitch.tv/MMOBomb. Every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That is 2 p.m. Pacific Standard. That means the earliest time zone available in the United States. Just for you guys over in the European areas. You guys seem to always come at the end of the stream, like at 3 o'clock. I don't know. You guys getting out of school or something? Like waking up? What time is that? I don't know. Anyways, I guess we'll see you for the next episode here of Free to Play Podcast. As always, we truly appreciate your likes, your comments, any suggestions that you have for us. And don't forget, if there's ever a topic or conversational point that you want us to talk about, or you have a question of your own, feel free to leave them down and we'll get to them in their own special little way. Alright guys, this is the part where we do our special handshake and beam ourselves out of here. And so for all of us here at the Free Play Podcast, we'll see you guys next time. Spunkify out. Later guys.